Hello again, Brenton here, bringing you a little bit more ecotherapy with a different element today. It's still true no matter what elements we're sitting with. When we put ourselves in the natural world, we place ourselves right in the middle of all of the cycles of life that are always present in nature all at once. And it reminds us that we're deeply interconnected with this ecosystem, with these elements, with this world outside of our homes and our comfort. When we tap into that primal kind of interconnectedness, it does things to our body. We're designed for this. It eases our minds, it strengthens and heals our bodies. And fire is one of my favorite elements to sit with because it's magical. There's evidence that we were working with fire in meaningful ways over 1,000,000 years ago. So for a long, long, long time, humans have sat with this element like this. We've sat close by it. We've cooked over it. We've used it for sanitation and for healing. We've used it for ritual and spirituality. So fire has been kind of this gateway into these different realms, these different means of understandings for humans. In fact, some of the mythology around it, fire was so special that it was stolen or gifted to humans, from the gods because of its power. And if you think about fire, that's kind of the way it is. It requires tending, it requires building, it requires being fed, and it requires being mindful. We have these protective barriers around fires to keep them safe because fire can get out of hand a little bit. But when we sit with fire, particularly a wood burning fire, although if you can't, even a candle is beneficial. But sitting with fire does things to both our mind and with our bodies. And this is part of the benefits of bringing fire into ecotherapy. And whether we're meditating with it or we're gazing into it like a yogic practice, or we're just sitting around a campfire, we still get those benefits. And so in a physical way, there's actually studies that have been done that show that when we sit next to fire and we're around that warmth and that flickering light, that it not only brings us to a state of relaxation, it actually lowers our blood pressure. So anybody with hypertension could stand to sit next to some campfires for a little while. Esoterically, fire does a little bit more. It's said that when we gaze into fire, we actually purify the gates of our eyes. And so we take in a lot these days through our screens, and we don't really think about honoring or protecting ourselves from what we let in. And so whenever we sit next to fire and gaze into it, it's kind of like we smudge our eyes. We purify and cleanse those, not only physical gates, but the inner gates as well. And lastly, when we sit next to fire, it does something to our energy bodies. If you've ever sat next to a fire and you feel like you've kind of taken a bath, I feel that way often. Sometimes sitting next to a fire is the only way I can allow emotion to move all the way through me that feels stuck, because fire opens. If you think about what fire does to wood, it liberates the oxygen and the energy inside, and it combusts. And so it's that same kind of liberating energy that fire can offer us inside if we need help with that. So in the summers, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, we get all of the fire purification we typically need through the sun. But in the winters, it's late fall here where I am now, and you can see some of the frost on the ground behind me. Those are great times to sit next to fire because our light and our warmth is low during the winter. The whole world around us kind of goes underground and returns to earth and to water. And so we need that activation and that warmth of fire during the colder months to help keep us balanced. So if you get an opportunity to build a wood-burning fire somewhere out in nature, that's the best. But I understand not everybody can do that. So you can work with fire in a fireplace or a hearth at home. While yes, wood burning is best, a gas fire is better than none. And as I mentioned before, even if you just have a candle or two to sit next to in meditation, or sometimes at your desk while you're working, can make a big difference with your mind and your body. So I hope you get an opportunity to get next to this sacred element. And to remember that sometimes all we have to do is sit with the natural world for it to have an effect on us, because that's the state that it's in. Nature knows balance. And even if it doesn't look like it as we zoom in, The bigger picture of nature always holds that equilibrium. And so when we immerse ourselves in it, we return ourselves to that same thing. So we'll see you later.